What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we're going to give you the top 10 dark horse playoff contenders for this upcoming 2023 college football season. So who could be a dark horse? Which teams are in contention of being dark horses? Well, these are the teams that I put in my tier 1, and these are the teams that I think are playoff contenders. So none of these teams could be considered as dark horses. You know, there are some borderline teams here. You know, look at Tennessee, Utah, Notre Dame. You know, there are some teams where you might say, are they really the top contenders? Well, I do think all of these teams do belong in that top tier. So, again, if you see your team on this list, they can't be a dark horse because they're already one of the top playoff contenders, in my opinion. Now, we're going to get to the other 10 teams, the teams that I think are the biggest dark horses that maybe have a chance. I don't really see it happening, but if we do see another TCU, I think it's going to come from one of these teams. And I was trying to figure out how to rank them. Should I rank them on their likelihood of making the college football playoff, or how big of a dark horse they are? And so I just didn't rank the teams. I'm just going to give you the 10 teams, and they're really in no particular order. So we'll start with the only non-Power 5 team to make the list. That's Tulane. They were 12-2 last year, of course, had the big win over USC in the bowl game. If they run the table, there is a chance that they could get into the college football playoff. I don't know. I don't think it's a guarantee, but the fact that they did what they did last year, and then you have a Power 5 opponent in Ole Miss on the schedule, it gives them a chance. So you've got Ole Miss. You know, UAB is probably going to be pretty good. UTSA has a chance to be a top 25 team, and I almost put UTSA on this list. They have to play Tennessee and Houston. If they were able to beat both of them and then beat Tulane at the end of the season, I think UTSA probably would get in the college football playoff. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. Maybe they pull off a shocker and they upset. Well, it wouldn't be a shocker if they beat Houston. Maybe they beat Houston, but it would take a lot to beat Tennessee. And then again, beating Tulane at the end of the season, I think that's going to be a little too much to ask for UTSA. But you look at Tulane here. What would get them in? If they run the table, if they go undefeated, what would get them into the college football playoff? They'd probably need some help. I don't think they're going to get in over a one-loss Power 5 conference champion. So you're going to need a little bit of chaos. And you're going to need Ole Miss and UTSA to have really good seasons. You're going to need Ole Miss to be like 10-2, 9-3, UTSA to be ranked in the top 25. Maybe their only loss comes to Tennessee, other than the loss to Tulane. So it's possible, but they're definitely a dark horse. Tulane, because of what they did last year, what they have coming back, and the fact that they do have Ole Miss on the schedule, and gives them a chance. All right, now Texas A&M. They're a dark horse, and I know people are probably going to argue with this, but I think there's a chance A&M could possibly sneak in there. They've got the talent. The roster is really talented, and the schedule sets up pretty well for them. They get Alabama at home. They've played Alabama really tough. And then you look at Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU. Those 3 road games, those are going to be the tough ones. Can they win 2 out of 3 on the road in those games and then also beat Miami? You know, it's a long shot. They are definitely a dark horse, but it wouldn't shock me if Texas A&M puts it all together with the talent that they have, that they could possibly make a run. 10-2, if they were 10-2 and there was a lot of chaos in the SEC and they were able to sneak into the SEC championship, you could maybe see them getting in that way as well. All right, moving on. Oregon State, a team that I don't believe is in that top tier of the Pac-12, but I don't think they're far behind. What if DJ Uiagalelei plays up to his potential and he's a superstar, and they've got everything else to go with him? The schedule does set up pretty well because of the home games here. Utah at home, Washington at home. They don't play USC. Oregon on the road is a rivalry. You never know what could happen there. It's realistic to think that Oregon State could possibly somehow sneak into an 11-1 record. They then would have to go on and win the Pac-12 championship, which would be tough. UCLA's on the schedule as well. Washington State's on the road. Colorado's on the road. Who knows what's going to happen with them? So it's going to be tough. And again, these are dark horse teams. These are teams that I don't see making the playoff, but I think if something crazy happens, we could possibly see one of them sneak in. I think Oregon State definitely fits that description. All right, North Carolina up next. This is a team that if they can get by South Carolina, you look at the rest of their schedule, very manageable outside of that road game at Clemson. let's say they don't beat Clemson and they go 11-1. Well, they're probably going to get a rematch with Clemson in the ACC championship, depending on what happens with Florida State. But let's say they don't go to the ACC championship. They lose a really close game to Clemson. Florida State and Clemson play in the ACC championship, but North Carolina's sitting there at 11-1. Could they possibly sneak in that way? It's possible. I don't know if the schedule is going to be tough enough. I don't know if the resume will be there, but there is a chance. There are a couple different ways North Carolina could possibly make the playoff. They're going to have a really explosive offense, and the defense can make some improvements. You never know. Tar Heels could sneak in there. All right, Wisconsin out of the Big Ten. This is the only dark horse out of the Big Ten, in my opinion. Of course, you've got Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, but look at the schedule for Wisconsin. Outside of the Ohio State game, they're going to be favored or very slight underdogs in the rest of these games. If they win those 11 games and they only lose to Ohio State, you never know. Get to the Big Ten championship, maybe they pull off an upset over Michigan or in a rematch against Ohio State or whoever they play. There's a chance that Wisconsin could sneak in there. And I don't think it's too crazy to say that they could upset Ohio State. That game's at home. So you never know. I think the schedule, again, really sets up well for Wisconsin. We'll see how much of a jump they can make in year one under Luke Fickell, but I think the potential is there that this team could be a dark horse and could sneak in there. All right, the rest of the teams are actually in the Big 12. So 5 of the 10 teams are in the Big 12 because I think that conference is just so wide open, and I think there are a lot of good teams. Texas, some people may not even call them a dark horse just because of some of the preseason expectations. But again, they haven't really reached that level yet in previous years. So I think they're definitely a dark horse. But the schedule, they play Alabama on the road, of course. But you look at their schedule in the Big 12. TCU on the road is going to be tough. You got Oklahoma. Kansas State will be tough. There are some tough games here. But if they lose to Alabama and they run the table the rest of the season, which is possible, they're probably going to get into the college football playoff. If they win the Big 12 championship, they should be in. So Texas definitely has a chance. Oklahoma, can they make enough improvements this year? The offense was good last year, but the defense was not. Brent Venables, can he get that fixed in the offseason? If they could beat Texas in a rivalry game, you look at the rest of the schedule. You know, Oklahoma State on the road, Bedlam, that'll be a tough one, of course. Kansas on the road, they're going to be good. But they're going to have a really good shot in the rest of their games. So even if they don't beat Texas, they could go 11-1, maybe win in a rematch against Texas in the Big 12 championship. And there is definitely a path for Oklahoma. All right, TCU, they did it last year. Can we really call them dark horses when they went to the playoff last year? Well, no one's really considering them a top contender this year, so I think we can. The schedule's tough with Kansas State and Texas Tech on the road, Oklahoma on the road. They get Texas at home. That's the good news. Again, it's going to be tough, but they did it last year. I'm not going to put anything past them. If they can go on the road and win some big games, maybe TCU could sneak in there. And then we got Kansas State, who won the Big 12 last year. They've got Oklahoma State, Texas Tech on the road, Texas on the road. They do not play Oklahoma. That's the good news. And so, again, this schedule is pretty manageable. They could lose to Texas. That'd be okay because if they get to the Big 12 championship, they could avenge that loss in a rematch. So I think Kansas State's definitely in the running here. This is a team that's going to have a lot coming back, really well coached. And again, they won the Big 12 last year, so no reason to think that it would be impossible if they do it again this year. And if they can do that at, say, 11-1 and then win the Big 12, they're probably going to be in the playoff. And then finally, we've got Texas Tech. That Oregon game is going to be huge. If they're going to make a run and be a dark horse team to get to the college football playoff, they're probably going to have to beat Oregon. I'm not going to say that they absolutely have to, but you look at the rest of the schedule, Baylor on the road, BYU, West Virginia on the road, Kansas on the road, Texas on the road. They have TCU, UCF, a lot of tough games. I don't really think that this team can lose to Oregon and win the rest of their games. I just don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think they've got to pull off the shocker against the Ducks at home, then try to get to 11-1, win the Big 12 championship, and I think you could possibly see Texas Tech sneak in there. So I think 5 dark horse teams out of the Big 12, and then we've got 1 out of each of the other Power 5 conferences, and then Tulane is my one group of 5 dark horse. So that's who I think, again, outside of those top tier teams, could possibly sneak into the college football playoff this year. Oh, do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Who would you add to the list? Who would you take off? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below.